Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to another Tesla Nation event. Today, we will focus on Swiss business culture and norms that apply when doing business with clients from Switzerland. And our speaker for today is Maja Schreiner. She's an entrepreneur of Serbian origin who has been living and working in Switzerland for 20 plus years. So she will share her best practices and some of the most common mistakes that you can make when doing business in Switzerland from her West experience. So thank you for joining us today, Maja, and for sharing your knowledge and your experience with our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. So as Nemika said, I will be talking about my experience with working in clients. I will be focusing on three main topics, and that is a very positive business culture and why I think it is so positive in Switzerland, overall environment in Switzerland, and let's say in our surroundings and worldwide, and a few, let's say, a bit challenging or less positive things. About myself, I was born and grew up in Serbia, where I also finished my university studies in Belgrade. I actually come from IT. This is what I studied. I spent many, many years in software development teams. Yet at some point, I realized being an agile coach and product manager and latest by an entrepreneur is something that is where I have much more passion and where I can also create and make much more impact. Here you also see my LinkedIn link if you want to connect and talk more. So what is it about a positive business culture in Switzerland? You've probably heard about the phrase like a Swiss watch. That means really, really being on time, being very punctual. That means if you, for example, are invited even for a coffee or some private or professional event at 6 p.m. on Saturday, then you should come at 6 p.m., right? You shouldn't come at 5 or 5:30. Your hosts are not ready then. What can also happen for some business meetings, sorry for this technical break. I was talking about being on time and not being too early, though. And I was just giving an example of, for example, even coming for a meeting or let's say job interview. Once it happened to me that I came, let's say at 8:30 instead of 9, because that was the public connection with the train. And I thought, okay, why shouldn't I ring the bell at this company 30 minutes earlier? And they were completely shocked and surprised. And I think I got at least 1 minus point of being too early though. So just to sum it up, be on time. If you have to invite some people from, let's say, Balkan or Serbia to your events in Switzerland, there is a tweak. If the event should start at 6, you can tell them to come at 5, and then they will come with 1 hour delay. I mean, only those who are, let's say, new to the Swiss culture. At some point, everybody adapts and understands. Then Swiss people really like to think long term. I would say this is not only in Switzerland, in general, Western Europe, or let's say American system, even in China. People think very much ahead already when they have children. For example, they think about what school their child should go to, what kind of education it should get, what kind of career it should have. And then when this person is working, right? So for example, now you have been educated enough and you have your job, you always try to plan your career already now from your 20s. You think strategically. That means what kind of jobs, what kind of companies I can profit most, not only in terms of salary, of course, but also in terms of getting more experience, getting more knowledge, getting more business acumen. And this is also when we're talking about business itself, right? For example, if I want to start selling burek here in Zurich, and even if I can rent a pop-up store on the main train station, my goal shouldn't be actually only on this 1 month when I have an access to this pop-up store, and not only calculating how much money will I earn from selling this burek at the main train station, but I should also think about my marketing, my branding, what kind of call to action will I be giving to people and my clients buying this burek. Then I should also think about what will happen after this 1 month. Of course, ideally, I should have a plan for at least 1 full financial year, etc., right? So people really think in long term, and then, of course, they adapt their short-term planning based on the long term. Accuracy has something to do with the punctuality, as explained previously. Yet it is much broader term. That means also how you communicate to each other, what is the message that you are passing to people who are listening to you, to whom you're conversating, how or accurate not only your messages, but your results, everything you are presenting. And of course, in return, people also expect you to be accurate as well when you are doing business with them. That is also very much connected to organization. And with organization, it really, as you certainly know, it includes so many aspects, right? If I go back to this, let's say, selling burek example on the train station, you have to organize the delivery. You have to organize your production. You have to organize your workers who are selling this burek. You have to organize, let's say, your people who are actually distributing flyers about your special offer on that day, or let's say maybe even organizing some competitions for your clients where they can get some coupons, etc., etc. So, of course, financial aspects, everything has to be really organized and trained to be able to work with each other, right? So also to also share the vision, to share the idea of that business, to share the idea of the company, to know who is the main contact to ask. I mean, imagine you are now employed to distribute these flyers, and then somebody might ask you, oh, do you have burek with cheese, or do you just have burek with meat, or what do you have? And actually you should, even if you're only distributing flyers, you should know your menu, right? You should know what is your offer, at what price, whom to ask, what will happen after this 1 month pop-up store is closed, etc., etc. Then what is also very important to Swiss people is honesty. I do have to, maybe I forgot to give a small disclaimer. Switzerland is actually the only foreign country I've ever worked for, so I can't really compare it to, let's say, Japan or United States. I can, though, compare it to Serbia a lot. And even if people are honest in Serbia, definitely in Switzerland, it's, I would say, honestly, in some other level. And that means from one side, you need to know how much and what you can ask them, right? For example, this is also connected to discretion. That means if you have, let's say, a new client or new prospective client, then you should first do your research and know, of course, much more about the client, about the products. You should be aware of what kind of match is it between what you are offering to this client and reverse. So you should first gather your information. Still, it could be, right, that you are missing some information, especially if it's some particular offer that you are giving them. So this is where you can definitely ask few questions, yet you need to be very precise and very accurate. And you also need to know how much and what you can ask. But be sure that when you get this answer, the answer will be honest. It might be diplomatic in terms that it's not like answer in terms of, you know, Peter Müller is working on this or that, and we are working with the customer similar to you with this or that name. So this kind of information is rather confidential information, but you will get an answer that is honest and really correct on this high level. What is direct democracy? This is honestly something that I'm and will always be built on I believe that there's something for your inhabitant, right? Everybody who to vote, everybody older than 18 years old normally, initiative that is on a local level. That means the country is divided into 26 so-called cantons that could be like, let's say, small countries in a big country, Switzerland. Yet in every canton, there is a municipality. I mean, something very similar to Serbia. Actually, we have municipality Belgrade and then some other municipalities, Novi Beograd, etc., etc. So now imagine, even in Belgrade, in how do you say, Krug 1 or Kreis 1 or Kreis 2 or Circle 1 or Circle 2, you would have, let's say, a voting on, is this whatever street going to be renovated and whatever created or built at this budget that is actually allocated from the state budget, right? And this is where, again, everybody who is living, let's say, in this Circle 1 is entitled to vote. Then there is another level of voting, let's say, on the Belgrade level, or let's say on the whole Serbia level, right? This is something that what we call in Serbian language a referendum. And if I'm not mistaken, we had only few referendums in the last 30 years. But imagine you would have something like this, let's say, 4 times a year on a few different topics in every municipality. And this is even more interesting, is that you as an inhabitant of this municipality or, of course, country can also start collecting votes and also start collecting votes for your initiative, right? Whatever this initiative can be. I will just give one example from mine. We have this so-called 30 kilometers per hour speed that is allowed in one of the main streets in the suburbs from Zurich, where I live in. And this is because there are many primary and also secondary schools in that area. And let's say this is the most crowded street or the area with some supermarkets. So there is a civil initiative, or there was, where people have collected enough votes to bring this to our local government voting day. And luckily it was voted yes. So this is just one a very interesting, you would say, simple example where people could really bring and live the direct democracy principles. And now I've been talking maybe too much about politics, but if you can transform this to the business culture, right? To say we have, let's say, a corporation, and that has, let's say, even few hierarchies, even if the corporations nowadays are trying to have not that many hierarchies, still there is some decision-making process and the level of decisions that, let's say, C-level executives, middle management, and then, let's say, ordinary employees can take. Yet, for those who know, besides this top-down decision-making, many companies are now starting to think and to live and to apply the bottom-up in a philosophy and bottom-up methodology when they encourage and motivate their employees to exactly apply basically direct democracy principles to everything around their business culture, and let's say their product development. So again, employees are encouraged to bring their initiatives on, let's say, ideas. How can, for example, if you're working in an IT company or let's say telecommunication company, and then you are offering, let's say, internet network or TV network, etc., and now the employees can bring their examples on how this can be simplified, what kind of products we can also offer our clients or some new clients, how can we actually end the product cycle or circle of products that are not needed anymore or not profitable anymore, how can we improve our collaboration. All the different ideas are really encouraged. And also I know of companies that also give some time from a working time or even some small budget as a kind of prize to these employees or teams who, let's say, have these winning ideas per year. So I find that really super exciting, and this also leads to much higher employee engagement. As we also know, employee engagement nowadays is super important to not only attract, but also to retain your talent and to make them more engaged and satisfied. Now, what is the two-way communication dialogue? I mean, as the name says, okay, now I'm like doing a monologue, obviously, but I mean, if we would have a chance to talk to each other, I would, for example, explain to you what this communication dialogue in a two-way street that involves two people or more means, and then you would give me your opinion, or you would give me your feedback, or maybe tell me, no, I think this is something else. So it really concerns a person who is, let's say, passing the message and the receiver of the message and giving this message back, or let's say an answer back. And that also ultimately means that not only the person who presents or let's say thinks knows more should actually also take into account other opinion and also adapt and also listen to other opinions before making a decision. What is transparency? This is super important to many companies. And this means that basically, I was just mentioning decision-making or some decisions, right? So now if we're talking again about big corporations, transparency could mean, for example, that decisions made on the, let's say, C-level executive level are transparently given back, or let's say forwarded to your employees first, also before it goes into public, right? Before LinkedIn or Twitter is writing about that. And not only that, but the reasons for making these different decisions is also transparently passed further. Then, of course, transparency means, if we are also talking about teams, and let's say development teams, it should be actually common, and it is a practice, that everybody should know what other people are doing and why, right? So you have team goals, you have some team metrics, you know what you have to do as a team, yet you have different roles and different people involved in your team, and they should really be able to share if they have done their job on Monday, Tuesday, end of the week, end of the month or not, and why. And this is for people who know more about agile development, or especially agile software development, also very common term and very common value of every agile team. That means you really have to be transparent. And for that, of course, you can use some software tools to make it also more visible and more transparent. But basically, it is a value that every team and every business culture should share. Now, the work ethic. That means mostly in case of Switzerland that people love to work and that they really, really commit to their job and to their career and to their working tasks. That means if you come at work, let's say at 8 in the morning, or let's say you're working online and you switch on your laptop and anything you need for your job, that means you are working, right? That means even if you later enter your 6, 8, or even 10 hours, hopefully not 10 every day, but let's say whatever number of hours you worked, this is the numbers that you really worked, and not like had coffee or went to a gym. On the other side, people really care about their work. So that is, I would say, still quite different to, as far as I know, people in Serbia. We also have a saying in Serbia where we say, in Serbia, you actually don't live to work, you live to have fun. But and sometimes people make remarks about Swiss or even Western culture that they live to work. Which is at the end not quite black or white, right? Because if you have worked from 8 to 5 and you have finished your job and you have, of course, at the end of the month, you have a really nice salary and nice benefits from that company. At 5 o'clock, you then go to gym or you go for after work drinks. So it doesn't mean that people don't know how to have fun. On the contrary, trust me. Just today, Monday, I was talking to my working colleagues about skiing over the weekend. So they do know how to enjoy life and they need to have fun, and they want to have fun a lot, actually. But work is also super important, and this ethic, what happens at work, is super important for them. Then I think responsibility is again also very self-explanatory. And that also means that, as I was mentioning, this direct democracy, or let's say encouraging your employees bottom up to be involved in your company development and product development, that also has to do with responsibility. That means responsibility, let's say taking responsibility and really showing that you are taking responsibility and acting responsible is very much encouraged from your management and for every employee. And it can happen, right, that if you neglect your responsibility, if you are not delivering, if you are late every day, if you are going home at 3 o'clock and not finishing your job so that your team suffers, then you can imagine that your team colleagues will really object, and that this information will be indeed passed very fast to everybody involved, to your stakeholders, to your line managers. So responsibility is very, very important for people in Switzerland. And that can, of course, also be transformed to private life. That means if you are, let's say, a grandparent, right, and grandmother, And if you think you are responsible to take care of your nephews or of the kids of your child, and if you say, yes, I will come on Wednesday at 8, you will be there. Yeah, you will not go to whatever other appointments. So it's really something which Swiss people really take for granted. Okay, this is now on the slide about positive business culture, this strictness, or let's say being exact. It's not always very positive if you are like super strict, but I put this one because there are indeed many rules in this country and also many rules on the workplace. I was mentioning a few times, let's say a typical working day from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 with a 1-hour break. So imagine you want to get into your office at 8 p.m. in the evening, or on Saturday or on Sunday. Of course, you're not getting in there, right? Because there is a security in front of the building, or you can't just use your badge to get in. That means if it's really something, if you are, let's say, working in the software maintenance and or operations, and you need to get in on Saturday to do whatever, you need a special allowance to do that, and let's say a special tweak on your badge to get in and to show your ID. So this is just one simple example, but let's say they are quite strict. There are so many rules, right? Of course, there are also good rules. We've been reading a lot about some, let's say, gender harassments or harassments of people who are minorities, or let's say LGBTQ, or even women. And this is very, very regulated here in Switzerland. So this is, I would say, this positive side of being strict and being exact. So you certainly know what are your rights if you've been, let's say, harassed, and you know whom to call and what to do. And on the other side, you should be aware of what can happen to you if you neglect the rules. Swiss people are also very pragmatic. What I would say, and please don't get it wrong if I say that, but I would say that Serbian people could be much more pragmatic. We are rather, I would say, if I can say it like on a high level, very emotional, very people with temperament, passionate people, yet Swiss people are rather a bit opposite. They are very pragmatic. They can calculate the loss or calculate the value or the gain very fast and somehow easy. I guess it's in their blood. And yeah, they are very, very pragmatic. For example, you want to win one client, right? And you have proposed your offer, you have pitched your offer, and maybe it didn't come through, so you didn't win this client. And this is where they always say, okay, we will learn from this lesson, we will learn from what has happened, we will learn from the process, we will adapt, we will do it better next time. And on the other side, who knows, why is it good that we didn't win this client? So they don't start crying that much, or like, you know, pulling on their hair every time something bad happens, or every time they have some challenge or difficulty. They really try to put it into perspective. And I think this is really, really a good strength. They're also very unpretentious. Just last year, I finished part-time studies in business at the university, at ETH. This is one of the universities, let's say the best in Zurich. But what I'm trying to say is that I would meet their professors, like I would meet the teachers, the lecture givers, the coaches, other students, right, who even have PhDs or even more success than myself, but they would never tell you, hello, I'm Peter Müller, I'm professor of this, and I have this experience, and I know this, and my client wins I don't know how much revenue. So they never do this kind of show off, pretentious elevator pitch, right? They always say, "Hi, I'm Peter, nice to meet you," or how are you doing, or how was your day? So this is not only in the way they communicate, but also in the way how they look, what they dress. You could see many people dressed in, you know, pullovers or some sneakers. Yes, I mean, you would really, I mean, now I have something like a business suit on, but maybe I'm even overdressed for this event. But normally I don't go to work like this, not even to meet clients. I mean, depending on the clients, but really people are really unpretentious. They really don't brag about their success or their house or their career. And this is what is really interesting. So sometimes this pattern is that people who are pretentious here are rather those who don't have much to offer, and they try to compensate it, yeah, with a certain image. And Swiss people are also very tolerant. They really, as I was mentioning, they have some rules, they can be strict, but on the other side, they will really not make any comments on how you walk, what you do, how you finish this project. Of course, you should follow some framework and some guidelines, especially if you work in consulting or in a big company, but they will be open to listen to your ideas and rather curious to learn how the heck did you manage to win this client if you haven't followed this sales pitch or sales script, right? So they can be really tolerant on so many levels. And I have to say, I really appreciate that. They will not ask you, why are you living there? What are you doing? Why this company? Why this? Why that? They're really super tolerant. I think I should speed up a bit now. As you've probably heard, as you probably know, we are in the center of Europe, which is like geographically really good position. Indeed, we are surrounded by some much bigger countries like Germany or France. There is this running joke about Germany being a big canton of Switzerland, which is also a tiny bit true because we have many people from Germany working and living here. Yet, as you probably know a bit of history, Swiss people have been very pragmatic, have been very diplomatic, and I would say uber smart in protect their small country, their nature, their actually not that many natural goods that they have, or and they have really excelled in innovation, economy, and business. More than that, it's a very safe country. I don't know what would somebody else say, or especially women living in Switzerland, but I have never ever felt any threat here. It also has maybe a bit something to do with the fact that we don't have people living on the street. We have a really high level of, let's say, life, let's say, quality of life, right? Money and wealth. It's really wealthy countries. So I would say they also invest not only in infrastructure, in the public infrastructure and public transportation means, but, you know, everything around light and, you know, everything so that you really feel safe. There is also something else to it. Their police is obviously very well trained and very efficient. And then there is a tiny bit, what they say, you don't even need the police sometimes when you have a good neighbors who will call police if something else or something bad happens to you, which is really true. So I think this safety, like it's really safety, like on a, let's say, safety level, but it's really politically a very strong country, very stable on the finance, of course, right? I mean, you know how many banks there are here, how many people are actually saving money in a Swiss bank. So this all brings to this feeling that, you know, what you're doing today is also for the future, and you don't need necessarily to think, will I have enough future or enough money or whatever tomorrow. And this is really where people can really relax and focus on business and their life. Then sustainability. For those who haven't been here, I really welcome you to come, at least as a tourist, to see this nature, which is really, really well preserved, very good maintained, and there is a very high level of mindset what sustainability is. And it is, of course, invested, country invests a lot, but also on the educational aspect. That means I have 2 kids who are in secondary school now, and you can imagine already in the 1st or 2nd grade in the primary school, almost even in kindergarten nowadays, they learn about sustainability, they learn about environmental awareness. They teach kids to accept gifts and accept presents which are second-hand presents, which are, of course, in a very good state, but not like bought in the shopping mall. And they also educate kids about recycling, about climate warning, everything. So I think, and of course, on the business level, every company should have at least few SDG goals in their vision, in their roadmap to tackle, right? I mean, you know that from, let's say, companies like Tesla, but many IT companies, many companies that produce and consume a lot of energy and electricity as well, they have to be more and more aware. Otherwise, their shareholders will not invest, or they will get some very difficult questions to answer. There is a really excellent education. And here I'm really talking about public education. I can't tell that much about private one, but I think that one is also good. But really public education is really good. And it's also adapted to children. It can be really individual as well. This is what always really I find it really great. For example, my own kids never had any difficulties, but I've known of some, and I see that also at work, right? That it's very much invested in all generations. It's invested, as said, not only in kids at schools to reach certain level, or let's say to find a job and a path that is matching their knowledge, but basically to also at work, I said, to say, okay, now we have apprentices, or now we have interns. Who is working with them? Who is educating them? Who is onboarding them? How much time is needed? When will this person become productive? What kind of knowledge this person is giving us, right? So what are the complementary skills, etc., etc. So this everything towards team development and team management and being more efficient from the very young age up to before you go to pension. And even if you go to pension, you can still continue working on some terms part-time. This is, I would say, really on a super high level. Of course, Switzerland is very open to foreigners, honestly. Okay, also honestly, rather to foreigners who have higher education degrees and who have some experience, and especially wealthy foreigners. I'm not sure how much money you would need to have if it's, I don't know how many hundred thousands of millions. I don't want to spread some false information, pardon me. But if you have really a lot of money on your account, you can almost get not only a so-called B permit, but even maybe some residence permit forever. I'm not quite sure, but there are different tweaks in different cantons or municipalities. For example, Canton Zug is very well known for having very low taxes for companies, but also for inhabitants. And as far as I know, for example, if you're working in Germany, almost 50%, something similar to Serbia, of your brutto salary is going to taxes, right? And here it's maybe only between 10 or maximum 15–18%, which is a huge difference. So what are the less positive or things that need getting used to? Swiss people, even if they are so transparent, pragmatic, accurate, etc., they are not that team players, right? You can see that from sports. You can even see that from some IT programming competitions where you would see Serbian or Macedonian or people from Balkan or let's say Eastern Europe, India, China winning over Swiss or maybe not even having to compete against Swiss team because they don't have a team on this kind of competitions. But in general, at work, it can become a bit challenging, right? If you don't have people who are team players, who even if they work in your team, still look first at their own benefits and still try to work for themselves. That can be quite challenging. Companies I know, or many companies I know, are really working to mitigate that. And you could see in many job ads, you should be a team player, you should have soft skills, or they at least try to educate them. It's not always working, but it's getting better. And on the other side, if you are yourself a team player, this is a benefit for you, right? Because then you can collect and connect your team and even create a team that works for you, right? And you will always somehow be able to find people who are team players. So I would just like to not put this as a main challenge, but just to be aware of that. As mentioned, right, you don't sometimes need a police if your neighbor will be a police. And for example, not even a neighbor, but imagine you go and park your car, leave your car on somewhere which is not a parking slot, or maybe a private parking slot in front of a private building, and then you can imagine then in 5 minutes you will get a fee, right? You will be fined. So this is not so cool, yet they somehow live by that. That is in their mindset, that is in their way of living. So I guess everybody needs to accept that is not going to change. Swiss people can also be very risk averse, and it's not a joke or also truth that they have many managers coming from abroad, especially from Germany, who are somehow very risk prone and like to make decisions, like to lead. I would say Swiss people really need to really improve on this. On the other side, for me, coming from Serbia, it was never a problem, because then I could get those projects or motivate others to make a decision. And I would say, okay, look, I will just stand up and raise my hand in a meeting. If you don't want to, I will do it in my name, or if you want, in the name of the team. And then you actually get more plus points, right, for your career and for your clients. And as said, risk comes together with decision aversion. They don't like to make decisions. Sometimes you can end up in meetings that go for, let's say, hours. 30 minutes can be extended very fast to 40, 50 minutes. This is where you, again, need to react and to say, look, the time is running. We should make a decision. Of course, you should prepare agenda. You should prepare everybody in advance. There are, of course, meeting management software tools in the meantime that you should definitely use. And again, if nobody wants to make a decision, and if you can, and if you want, this is again where you can shine. And with that, I would like to open the stage for any questions we might have. I really hope this was at least a bit interesting for you. And thank you again, Tesla Nation and USAID, for having me. Yes, so the first question, and thank you, Joanna. How open are Swiss companies to work with companies from the Balkans, especially from Serbia, and how is their mindset? I would say, I can say mostly from IT, this is from where I come from. They are really open for many different reasons, right? I would say that Serbian people also have a really good work ethic. And work ethic also, not maybe necessarily in terms of do we need 5 or 8 hours to finish something, but we know that we want to finish it. And we want to finish it in a high quality. And we can be hardworking, and we want to earn money. So, and we can also be very transparent and very honest, actually. And so there are so many similar values that we share with Swiss people. And of course, last but not least, quite frankly, Swiss people are still, especially in the IT, very expensive, and there are not enough of them. As you know, there is a war for talent globally. So this is, I think, many Swiss companies have, especially for IT, recognized that they can hire somebody for, let's say, half the salary or even 1/3 of the salary of Swiss salary, and people who are really, really motivated and hardworking. So my answer is that mindset is very pragmatic and very business oriented and money oriented and results oriented. And with that, they're definitely happy to hire people in Serbia. I think I even know of some who are saying they're not even getting enough people in Serbia now. So, Maria, thank you for your question. Do Swiss people have any prejudice about the Balkan people, and what would be the best strategy to deal with it? Well, you know, we unfortunately have still to deal with stigma and with bad branding after the wars in the Balkan and in Croatia, Kosovo, everything. So there is this prejudice that we have too much temperament, that we like wars or whatever to fight. That could be a typical prejudice. Yet I think that Swiss people are still, as said, not only unpretentious, but also tolerant. So as soon as you have a chance to present yourself, to present what you are bringing to the table, to present your motivation, they are really willing to listen. Again, especially if it's connected to their business goals, right? And they are really happy to listen. What you can, of course, always use to break the stigma is our hospitality, our love for people, our love for fun, for food, you know, for all these small things in life that we can really, really still excel. I mean, if you bring somebody to a business lunch in Switzerland, they will get a tiny portion of some food, but sorry, in Serbia, you just have much better food, much more quality. It's just everything on a different level, right? Everything regarding, let's say, services is somehow has more soul and more love. And this is, I think this, so that means make a business based on your similar values, but excel and create a next project on these complementary skills. So I think we are finished with questions, and you can always ask questions in the YouTube comments, if I'm not mistaken, or you can contact me directly. Thank you so much for being with us. And I would like to close this call and wish you a very nice evening and all the best.